Kristen, as our resident lib,
Yeah.
does Donald Trump control MAGA? Is this a deal breaker for him, or will Jack Posobiec and Tucker Carlson find that they're in over their heads?
This is an interesting question because it raises the idea of what is MAGA, right? And I think the answer isn't necessarily something that anyone in the current Republican coalition wants to hear. MAGA is whatever Donald Trump wants to say it is. It doesn't matter what the prevailing narrative from the day before is. Like we saw with Ukraine, Donald Trump loves to change his mind. And therefore, throughout his entire political career, he has gotten his supporters to bend over backwards, apologizing for decisions he's made which seem to run contrary to whatever ideological beliefs MAGA is prescribed. But quite literally, the Trump coalition is so big now. Everything he does is bound to piss off one wing of it, because even on economics or on foreign policy or immigration, there are conflating ideas at present here. So does Donald Trump control MAGA? Donald Trump is MAGA. Unfortunately, none of MAGA, quote unquote, can control Donald Trump. And that's why you're seeing the backlash with Epstein. That's why you're seeing the backlash with the strikes on Iran or flipping on giving new military aid to Ukraine. MAGA is what Donald Trump says it is. Therefore, he has no problems of losing those voters. That being said, Republicans have a big time problem on their hands heading into the midterms. We knew it was already going to be hard to drive the turnout that we saw in 2024 because Trump isn't on the ballot, although Trump might be on the ballot in North Carolina. Shout out Laura. But that's a story for another time. But the Democrats are really trying to dive in here to split the base. And I have conflicted feelings on it because on the one hand, I like to see them doing something new, jumping on Jeffrey Epstein, although that's not exactly new in and of itself, but as a means of fundraising and attacking the current administration, because we do know basically everything they've been doing hasn't worked, right? So it's at least a little bit of a change. But again, like I mentioned at the top, the people who actually care about this, however you want to describe them, ideologically far-right conservatives, conspiracy theorists, QAnon people, whatever, there's no shot in hell that they will vote Democrat, right? The people who don't care about this story, who I think this is where Democrats are wrong in their fundraising pitch, are those, swing state, blue-collar voters. They voted for Obama because they felt abandoned by Republicans after all the manufacturing jobs dried up. And then they voted for Trump because they felt abandoned by Democrats because their economic station didn't change at all. In fact, it got worse after the Great Recession because they lost their house and blah, 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 blah. Those are the people who determine elections. And I don't think, absent rampant inflation by Joe Biden and just the president very clearly being not physically or mentally capable of the rigors of office, that gave Trump and Republicans sort of a free pass.
Yeah.
I don't think either party since the 2016 election has really figured out how to mobilize that group, except by saying, look at how terrible of a job the other group did.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the big question moving forward. How do Republicans maintain control of that group after tariffs potentially drive up prices? After people get kicked off of, health insurance potentially, after the big beautiful bill or rural hospitals shut down, everything the Democrats are talking about. But it's also on Democrats to make sure that they can translate that dissentiment into blue votes. Otherwise, again, you've just failed objectively, and we're going to get, President Vance or President, whoever, and we're going to be in the same situation.
To an extent, the same problem that Democrats had with the immense celebrity of Barack Obama is what they have with Donald Trump, which is that they're so uniquely charismatic that the loyalty is personal to them. Mm-hmm. And when they are not on the ballot, it just doesn't translate. Which gets me to the, identitarian right of it all, which is that Tucker Carlson didn't get all the J6ers to storm the Capitol. Donald Trump did. Jack Posobiec was not the one who was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, and his instinct, unlike what mine would have been, or I think what most people's would have been, which is to, try and scramble away and scream, fight, 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 right? There is almost a Like the cult of personality around Trump is more similar to something of like a medieval monarch, where like he is considered like what tethers the people to
God.
To God. Like, no, but like, and like I know I sound, you know, like I'm being flippant about it, but like frankly, it just doesn't translate. So the sheer hubris of those who think like they can out MAGA Trump. MAGA, part of the reason why I think MAGA really resonated with those Youngstown, Ohio, Western Pennsylvania voters is specifically because it is outcome driven. It is not deontological. And like there are issues with it. If the incentive structure is bad, if the incentive structure is like, I want to stay in the White House even though I lost the election, you get January 6th. When the incentive structure is good, which is I'm at the beginning of my presidency for a second term and like I want to leave a great legacy, then you get ending the Iran nuclear program and, you know, him triangulating away from the Liberation Day tariffs, right? We see Donald Trump responds to incentive in a way that other politicians often don't. Most politicians in Washington, they do double down. They don't really learn.
No.
Trump, to his credit, changes when the results are not what he wants. And what he wants right now is everyone to have more purchasing power in their real wages. That's it. The point is that anything Democrats do that is not specifically answering one question, and that is, how do you increase the real purchasing power of people's wages? They are losing the war. They just have completely lost sight of that. And so as long as Donald Trump does care about that, he will continue to win.